Go. Hi there, welcome to Punchline Talks, the big interview, sponsored by Infostar IT Solution. I'm Mark Owen, the editor and owner of punchlinegloucester.com. And today, my special guest is Nick Gazzard, OBE, co-founder of the Hollie Gazzard Trust. Hello, Nick. Welcome to Punchline Talks.
Hi, Mark. Thank you very much.
Well, basically, I've known you for quite some time. It's been I think we just talked before camera. It's been 11 years, wasn't it, when Hollie was taken from us?
It was go back to 2014, which was one of those I think moments in life where it is a life-changing experience, and obviously Holly was murdered in February 2014, and that did change my life forever. And as you know, in creating the trust, because I didn't want this type of thing to happen to any other young individual, and other individuals go through what Holly went through. I created the trust to try and prevent that. And never in the month of Sundays did I think it would be as successful as it is today and as wide-reaching as it is today. Because, going back then, I thought if I could set something up which would, do this, if I could save one person, wouldn't that be a real legacy of Holly, really, because we had her for 20 years, but that could keep her legacy going. So it's been absolutely fantastic, the reach and the impact that we've had across the whole UK and further afield as well, and the value that we're adding to the communities, nationwide in keeping people safe. So yeah, I'm absolutely delighted with the way that it's worked out.
So how did you sort of set about at the very beginning? I mean, it must have been absolutely devastating as a family. I just nobody can comprehend what it was like. But when did it dawn on you that maybe this was the route that you wanted to go down? As you looked into it more and more.
Yeah, well, I remember that day obviously as clear as daylight, and for the first few days after Holly was killed, we were just in a state of daze because you're hit with everything, and the only way I could explain it, and I do explain it, is that it turns your world upside down, inside out, and back to front, and you just do not know where you are. But after a couple of weeks, we were thinking as a family, what can we do? Holly was just too good to let go. She had a massive circle of friends. She was a real socialite, and that was just too good an opportunity to really let it go. So, we talked then about, what should we do, and we consulted with a couple of other family members, and we said, well, why don't we set up a charity that we can help prevent these things happening going forward? So that's really how it started. A couple of weeks after Holly was killed, and I got a lot of help from my business in Bristol that I work for an insurer. So they handle a lot of the paperwork with the Charities Commission. And late April that year, just a couple of months after Holly was killed, and the trust was certified by the Charities Commission, and we were up and running.
So who have who was in the trust at the very beginning? So obviously it was yourself and your wife and your daughter, wasn't it? You were a daughter, sorry.
Well, yeah, we were the sort of the founders of that, and we had, because you learn a lot about charities and the law. We had to have a board, and we had five people on that board, and it was a couple of friends, a couple of acquaintances, and people that knew Holly. So we made that board up, and those are the people that were really interested in helping us to get this up and running. So yeah, very, very grateful for those individuals who were with us right at the outset.
Yeah. And then, so how big is the trust now?
We have seven staff, two full-time, five part-time, and we have a board of trustees of eight. So, it's still relatively small in numbers, but what we say is, whilst we're small in numbers, we are absolutely huge in terms of its impact across the country. And when people say to you, what's your turnover and how many staff you have? And they are amazed at how few staff we've got because of what we actually do and the reach that we have. They think we've got tens of staff, and we're a multi-million pound charity, but we're not. We're a very small charity in that sense, but a massive punch.
Yes, I mean, yeah. I mean, what is your turnover, if you don't mind me asking?
Um, it's about 250,000.
Oh, wow. Okay, that is quite small
Yeah,
considering, like you
yeah,
said, you're
yeah.
national. And how do you raise all the money?
Well, people again, people are quite amazed. You know, we do not get any statutory funding, so everything that we spend, we have to earn ourselves. So we do that through fundraising. So we have a number of fundraising events throughout the year. We have our business partners. We have some projects that we run from a training angle. We do some collaborations with other partners. We charge for our training because we have to employ the people. And Hollie Guard gives us a little bit of income as well, not a lot, but a little bit. So it's made up of a lot of different strands. We have a little bit of funding from various funders out there, and that sort of fluctuates throughout the year. But yeah, it's one of those things in business. You know, with charities, you know, we can't go out and get a loan, and we have to spend what comes through the front door. Really, we can't create lots of reserves. So it's really sort of hand to mouth each year. And every time you get to the start of the financial year and I have to prepare the budgets for the board, it's a start again, build your budget for this year to make sure that what you're going to spend, because you've got salaries to pay, you're going to get in through the front door, which can't guarantee because a lot of that relies upon the general public for their generosity. And the Gloucester public, I must admit, are so generous. We're really lucky to have those people who contribute to us on an annual basis.
Because it must be sort of you're stuck in a rock and a hard place in some ways, because obviously in order to keep the charity going, you've got to keep pushing Holly's name forward, pushing the brand forward, reminding everybody in some ways of what happened and what happened to you and then the other abuse that other people, that's the whole point of the charity, isn't it? To raise awareness to that. And that must be painful sometimes to do that on a regular basis, or is you've sort of numb to it, Nick.
I think I'm a little bit numb to it, but it is painful, and sometimes you have to dig really deep when I speak at a lot of conferences throughout the country, and you do have to dig deep because you're retelling your personal story, which is hurtful to you, and you're telling that to hundreds of people who want to listen. Sometimes they're professionals in the room, and other times they're the general public. So yeah, it is painful every time you have to do it. But as you mentioned, you've got to keep it front and center. You've got to keep it up there. So you have to keep pushing these things out time after time after time. Because the minute we drop it, it becomes yesterday's chip paper, and people have forgotten not about Holly in particular, but about the cause, because it is all about the cause. And the only way that we're going to get our money through the front door is to keep it high profile, keep it in the public eye, and that's what we have to continually do.
You have the Holly bench, which always reminds me of Holly in Southgate Street. I remember that day very well, by the way, because I sadly had to cover the story for Punchline, and yeah, it was quite horrendous. But you have got that bench there now, and it's one
Yeah.
of those. It's remarkable, really, because every time I walk past it, I always think of her, and I always think about that day, and I do think about you guys.
Yeah, the bench is a really important one for us because it's a bench which there was an original fundraiser by the salon where Holly worked in Southgate Street, and they raised a lot of money to put that bench there, and it was one of the things which we wanted to have a lasting memory of Holly, where she lost her life, and Matthew Burt, who was an architect down in Wiltshire, designed the bench and built it. And the county council, sorry, the city council were kind enough to say that we could put it, outside of the salon. And I always go down Southgate Street, have a sit on the bench, roll the ball because, it reminds me of Holly. And I see a lot of people doing that. So it's one of those things that does help people remember that, these things do happen. And they happen, on our doorstep sometime. And God forbid it won't happen again, but we never know. And that's what we try and combat, to stop these things happening.
Did it surprise you how much, as you went into it more and more, did it surprise you how much abuse is, from partners is actually taking place in the UK?
Yeah. I was astounded by what I learnt very quickly. And the way I liken it is that I was Jack and I was climbing that beanstalk. And I got to the top of the beanstalk, put my head above the cloud, and there's this whole new world out there that I came across of stalking, of domestic abuse, of general abuse, of child abuse, because obviously if someone's under the age of 16, then it's child abuse, not domestic abuse. And there was this whole sector out there that I never came across before. And it really did open up my eyes, but it gave me more of an impetus to do what I was doing, and the feeling that actually what I was doing was the right thing to do because there's so many people out there that need help. And to be truthful, Mark, it's getting worse. Even with the work that we do and other people in this sector, it is getting worse.
Why is that? Is that a throwback from COVID, or just society itself is changing? Or maybe it's the internet.
Personally, I think it's a number of different things. All those things that you've just said. We have austerity. We have, people who are struggling financially, which causes, again, a lot of tension between people. So there's a whole host of things which contribute to this getting worse. More of it is being reported now, we must admit, and that's a great thing because if it's being reported, then hopefully people are seeking the help that they need. But when we're working with the government, and I do work with the government and have meetings with ministers, they've said that they want to halve violence against women and girls by 50% in the next 10 years, which is a huge challenge, I think, for them because we've not bottomed it out yet. And I think once we do bottom it out, then we'll know the full extent of the issue. Um, but in the meantime, we've got to try and solve some of the issues that are around. Some of the laws need changing, and that takes time before you even get into that having an impact in the community. So I think it's a huge challenge that they've set themselves, and they need certainly the charity sector and all those people that work in it to help them out.
So how did you start Holly Garden? Can you just explain about what that actually is?
Yeah, Hollie Gazzard was, to be truthful, it was by accident. Uh, Hollie's sister Chloe was in a spa in Cheltenham one day. I think it was about middle of 2015, and she had a wristband like I've got on here of Hollie Gazzard Trust, and there was a chap in there. And he said, "Talk to me about your wristband. What is it for?" She told him about the story of Hollie, and he said, perhaps I can help you. I'm the managing director of a security company in London. Tell your dad to give me a ring. And that's how Hollyguard started, really. So it was by accident, but it's one of our, well, it is our flagship now in terms of what people know us for, but also it has saved so many lives. We know that from the feedback that we've had. And that gives you that really warm feeling that what you're doing is right and that you're actually providing something for individuals who may be vulnerable and they need that kind of protection. And every time you get that email or that direct message on social media through, which says, because of your app, I'm still here. Because of your app, I've got out of my relationship. It helps me feel safe. It saved me in X, Y, Z. It gives you that really warm feeling that, yes, Hollie is actually saving lives. And that's what we were set up to do.
So I'm very sorry, but you didn't actually explain what Holly Guard
Oh,
is.
didn't I? Sorry. Sorry. I'll go off on a tangent. HollyGuard is HollyGuard is our personal safety app that you can download to any smartphone. It's free to download and free to use. We have an upgraded version which is paid for if you want even more safeguarding because that goes to a police-approved 24/7 monitoring center. But it works by you setting up emergency contacts in your app who you would like to know if you were potentially in trouble. And once you've set your account up, it's all kept in the cloud, so it's all cloud-based, so there's nothing on your phone, um, and it can help keep you safe. There's a lot of functionality within HollyGuard, and we just tell people just download it, try it. If you don't like it, then just remove it from your phone. But we have over 500,000 people that have downloaded the app, so far. We did actually allow it to be downloaded outside the UK because it does work worldwide. But because it got so popular and it was costing us too much money, we didn't want to bankrupt ourselves. So we had to pull it from the app stores outside of the UK. And we still get lots of people come to us from outside the UK saying, "Can I download Holly Guard? I'm Australia, I'm Canada, whatever." And we say, Not at the moment. We don't have any plans to open it up outside the UK." But it does work in multi languages. I think it's 26 languages that HollyGuard works in. It picks up the language of your phone. So, it's not just for English speaking people, it's for all sorts of communities.
Wow, that's absolutely fantastic. 500,000 people it's got to.
Yeah, yeah, we have partnerships with 9 police forces with HollyGuard Extra, the paid for version for victims of crime around the country, and we know a lot of other police forces recommend it for victims of crime as well, the basic version, free version.
So let's talk about that actually, your connection to Gloucestershire Police and your relationship with them and the Police and Crime Commissioner and people like that. Do you work very closely with them and the centre of town security people as well, or is it
We
too big?
don't
You have
work, yeah, we don't work that closely with Gloucester Police. I must admit that we got a lot of support from the PCC's office in the early stages of the trust, the first 5 or 6 years, and they were brilliant for us. But I don't do a lot of work with Gloucester Police. They do use Hollyguard and they do have some licenses for Hollyguard Extra, and we're trying to do more work with them. But it's just a sort of a bit of a long process at the moment, I'm afraid. In terms of the city centre, we work with Gloucestershire City Safe. Um, we were commissioned by the City Council, City Safe, and the BID to run the Best Bar None scheme, the regional scheme for Gloucester. So we set that up at the end of last year, and we're now trying to get various venues accredited on that scheme, which is a national scheme. We've taken the national scheme and we put our spin around that with all the work that we do to make it a really encompassing scheme for Gloucester. And we think it's the best in the country. So we're trying to get as many venues as we can accredited because, people who go out in the nighttime economy need to ensure that where they're going is safe. And that they're going to have a good time. So, we're working with as many venues as we can over the next 6 months.
So I'm going to ask you about when you actually set up the charity and running the charity. What would you say was the biggest lesson that you learned along the way, Nick?
That's a really difficult one. I don't really know. I don't know how to answer that question. Um,
Was it the
I
people
think
that
it's.
you
I
got
think
on
one of the.
board? Was it people setting up the website? Was it I don't
Well,
want to just say
we got
about people. Was
yeah,
it
we got quite a
difficult
lot
to
of
actually
help
do?
at the outset from all sorts of organisations and people. I would say the most disappointing thing for me was that people that contact you and want to help offer that help and then you accept it and you work it all out and then they pull out and they don't do that, they don't give you that help, and that race wasted a lot of time and energy. And I didn't know whether it's because people want to be seen to be doing good, or they just wanted it on their CV. So there were a lot of people like that at the outset who may well jumped on the bandwagon, if you want to put it that way, but actually didn't add value and probably took up a lot of resource time. And when you're in a small charity, and I was on my own at the start, that just zaps your resource away from you. And when I set up the charity, I was also working full time at the same time. So, I was using my holidays and my spare time just to deliver the charity work.
Yeah, how did you manage all that? I mean, it must have been
Yeah,
extremely difficult
it was
because it's one of
incredibly
those things,
difficult.
isn't it? Because everything that you did, you were giving back for Holly. So
Yeah.
emotionally, physically, financially, it must have been totally draining.
It was, and then I went part time, and that's probably why in 2010 I had my stroke. I hit the brick wall, and I was lucky to survive the stroke. I think I was lucky because I had the stroke during this pandemic, and I managed to get into hospital quickly because there wasn't many people in there. Straight into ICU, MRI, everything done very quickly. And we know that with stroke people, the quicker you can diagnose and get them on that treatment, the more chance they've got of surviving. So I think I was very lucky that the pandemic worked out well for me, which not a lot of people probably can say that.
So you had your stroke. Did that make you then slow down and reassess the way that you were operating? And I would imagine your wife said, "Hold on a second, you've got to stop
Um,
this or take it easier," or well, maybe
yeah,
not.
I was told to, and Chloe, my daughter, um, told me to. The staff here kept telling me to, but it's very difficult when you got a real passion for something, and it's something I firmly believe. We're really adding value to people's lives out there, and it was very difficult to slow down. Even now, it's difficult to slow down. I only meant to work part time now, but I'll probably do full-time hours because when you have that passion in you to deliver, it's very difficult to say no to someone. So I very rarely say no.
What do you do differently? If you had your sort of time again, actually in the running the charity, what would you do differently?
I'd probably I would probably try and engage with businesses a lot earlier, because what I didn't really understand at that stage was that businesses are a huge part of the solution to what we do because individuals spend a lot of their time in working environment in businesses, and that's an area. Sometimes it's their sanctuary, sometimes is where the issues arise. And we know statistically that is a really important place, but I didn't really understand that at the outset. So I would have probably have engaged a lot more with businesses earlier on than we currently did. So and that was a big learning curve for me.
I mean, businesses themselves, let's be honest, they're fantastic at helping charities. So many charities. I sometimes think people don't realize, I don't know, maybe the layman does realize, I don't know, but
Yeah.
it always astounds me really how much is done by the business community.
Oh, absolutely. And I never set charity up and I never wanted to be a bucket shaker because I see it as a partnership. We give back to what we get. And when we work with businesses now, we have our women's safety consultancy, which we are rolling out to businesses. And we've got businesses in Hampshire, in London, in Birmingham that we work with, not so many in Gloucestershire. And I can't crack Gloucestershire. I don't know why. Perhaps you can give me some tips. But we have a fantastic product, probably the only one of the only ones on the market where we can help businesses. We can help them stay safe. We can help their employees stay safe. And with all the new laws coming in, we had the Workers' Reform Act in October, which puts added emphasis on businesses to keep their individual employees safe from sexual harassment, even when they go out to meet clients. All of that is contained within our offering. So we'd like to engage more with businesses in Gloucestershire because we have so much to give, so much to give. Um, and
Yeah, can you tell us more then? We've got a business audience now, so what do
yeah,
you actually
yeah,
do for the business community? Can
yeah.
you
What
help
we
from my
set up
business or?
Yeah, what we set up as a consultancy whereby it's a trust, and we go into a business, and we would do what we generally look at as a gap analysis. So we would do an online assessment of everything around safety of employees, particularly women. We'd look at their policies, their procedures. We look at their training. We'd ask lots of questions in those areas. We look at what the support packages is, in terms of their benefits packages and how they deal with people like lone workers. And we do that assessment and we produce a report for them with lots of recommendations. And then we talk to them about an initial 90-day plan of what are they going to do in the next 90 days, and we'll help them with that. We never tell them, we just give them that guidance, that advice, what you can do in the next 90 days. We suggest that they have one training plan every 90 days, one training events, and we'll deliver that. And then we come together 90 days later to see how they got on. And we say, sign up with a 3-year plan, and we'll get you along this journey and we'll make your business a hell of a lot safer for the employees. And you will reap the rewards because we know statistically that if you can deal with these items and deal with these issues, people stay at work. They don't have time off sick. And therefore, the business is actually reaping the reward there because the productivity increases, and also the quality increases because we can take things off of individuals' minds if they're thinking about abuse or sexual harassment, all those types of things. So, it's a real consultancy that we work with those businesses, and we'd love to get a few businesses in Gloucestershire on board on this because, as I say, we've got businesses around the country we're working with, and they love it. They absolutely love it.
Absolutely fantastic. I didn't know you did that at all. Maybe we should have a little bit more of a chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to ask you, let's go back to your early career. I've got another photograph I'm going to bring up here,
Yes.
which let's have a look here. So hopefully I can see you can see yourself playing football.
I can, yes. Not a lot of people will know that I did play football for Cheltenham Town. I, I was a real football nut, and I grew up in Bristol, and I was associated with Bristol Rovers for 5 years as a schoolboy, and then I went to Bristol City for a year, and then I came up to Cheltenham to go to St Paul's College as it was then to do a degree in geography and geological science. And whilst I was here, I was contracted to Cheltenham Town, and when I left and finished my degree, I again. I stayed in the area because I was playing football for the town. And that particular photograph there, I think I was 21 or maybe 20, and it was 84, 85 season. And that was a pre-season friendly against Bristol City. And, the guy you can see there also is a friend of mine who played for City at the time.
Well, I am assuming that you're on the left here.
Well, I'm the good looking one.
Oh, that doesn't help. That doesn't help, mate.
Yeah, the stripy
So
shirt one.
are you still friends with him now?
No, I haven't seen him for a long time. I think he played about 400 games for Bristol City. But I had a few games for Forest Green Rovers as well in my time. But unfortunately, I had to finish quite early due to injury. I snapped my cruciates. So I then went on to manage the county under 18 sides for the Gloucester FA. I did that for 17 years. So I still kept my hand in football.
Wow, I didn't know that at all. And where did you actually go to work in the end? You said you talked about an insurance company,
Yeah, I
but so
started
when
off with Ensley Insurance in Cheltenham. And then I moved to a company in Stoke Davies, and I ended up in Bristol with DS Legal. So insurance all my life. Absolutely loved it. Wouldn't change it if I went back and did something different. And met a lot of really good people. In fact, one of our trustees was someone I worked with 35 years ago, and I've kept in touch with him since, and he's come on board as one of our trustees.
I mean, you said at the very beginning how good the company that you work for were at the time. So which company was that then? Give me a
That was DS Legal, Legal Insure in Bristol. Yeah, they were absolutely brilliant, and I don't think I would have got where I am today without them. Their support was just fantastic, um, both in terms of when I was at work and also the time that I had to have off to recuperate. Yeah, they were just brilliant. I can't thank them highly enough, really.
I
And
wanted to ask
it
you.
just shows when you have a good employer how that impacts your life in a positive way, and they certainly did with me.
So I've got to ask you, what do you do in your spare time now? If you have any spare time, what do you actually? Have you got a book on the side of your bed, Nick? What are you actually reading?
What am I reading at the moment? I'm actually reading short stories by Ray Bradbury. That's my current book.
Okay.
So yeah, I do
Do you,
like
do you, do
his.
you read are you a prolific reader, or do you just pick them up on
Um,
holidays?
I like the classics. So some of the classic authors, Joseph Conrad, Scott Fitzgerald, and Franz Kafka, those types of authors. So I do a lot of classic reading. In fact, I'm reading a lot of books now that I read 30 years ago. So I'm just rereading them. So, but yeah, I do a lot of reading. I'm also an ambassador for Safeguarding Fundamentals, which is it's a charity that was set up by Antonio Noble, who's a criminal barrister in Cheltenham, and Dr. Paul Stewart, who was an ex-Liverpool, Tottenham, and England footballer, and he had a story where he suffered abuse during his footballing career. And he set this safeguarding fundamentals up, and this really is about um, putting certain standards in place in clubs where children are involved. So football clubs, hockey clubs, guides, brownies, and there's an eight requirements that each of those clubs must make to be a fundamentals quality mark accredited. So I'm helping them. I'm a proud ambassador. If you look at their website and look at the ambassadors, I've probably got the one with the least football inability on there when you look at some of the ambassadors. But I'm really proud to be an ambassador of safeguarding fundamentals.
Must have been a pretty good football player, mate, to actually get to that level anyway. So, well, unfortunately, we're running out of time, Nick, already. So I've got to ask you for your top three business tips, please.
Yeah, I'm quite a simple person, Mark, as you know, having met me. And so my top three tips are from what I've experienced throughout the trust. Really, the first one is don't take personal criticism to heart. Step back and use it to prepare yourself forward and prove those doubters wrong. So use it as that springboard to move forward. The second one is around very simply treat everyone in the way that you'd like to be treated, whether that's a customer, a client, or an employee. Um, and the third one is don't be afraid to make mistakes, but learn from them and don't make the same mistake again.
Yeah, well, I can definitely take that one on board. That's a fact, Nick. I'd probably be far more successful. Yeah, no, if I did. And so that's all we got time. Nick Gazzard, thanks ever so much for joining Punchline Talks today. I'd just like to thank our sponsors, Infostar IT Solution. I'd like to thank you all for watching. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. And we'll be back again next week. But until then, remember, it's all in the punchline. Thank you. Bye.